In today's video, I'm going to give you a sneak peek behind the curtain and show you how I make money as a full-time TTRPG content creator. This video is sponsored by the upcoming SIDEQUEST Year 3 annual, more on that later. Greetings gamers, my name is Anto and I am a full-time TTRPG content creator. I've been self-employed now, working in the tabletop space for almost a decade, with the last 3 years of that working full-time doing YouTube and other TTRPG related content creation, and I thought it'd be fun to give you a glimpse into how I make money in this industry. This video is going to be looking at the 23-24 annual tax year, so the last full tax year that I have, not the current one that we're in, and all the different ways that I made money and how it's split in terms of percentages. I'm not going to be talking about headline numbers here, just the percentage, but as we go through I will talk about where some of these numbers have gone up or down over the years. The tax year here in the UK runs from April to April, and I was full-time self-employed for this whole period, so all the income that I'm going to be talking about in this video has come from sources relating to being a TTRPG creator. Okay, so pie chart time. So here is how my revenue streams for 23-24 was split, and to kick things off, let's talk about the reason we're all here: YouTube. So as a creator who's part of the YouTube partner program, ads get shown before, during and after my videos, and I get a little bit of money for each ad shown, and over the course of the year this ad revenue accounted for just 6% of my income. This was down 41% on the year before. Part of that is because I took a couple of big patches of time off due to illness, but also speaking to a lot of other YouTubers, ad revenue in general was down in this period too. Now back during the height of the pandemic where everyone was stuck at home, YouTube accounted for over a third of my total income, so the fact that it's dropped down to just 6% seems kind of scary at first, but it's really more to do with the fact that I focused on making other segments of the pie bigger. And speaking of those other segments of the pie, let's talk about brand deals and sponsored content. Sponsored content made up 9% of my income during the year, and this has been pretty consistent now for the last 3 years. Again, during the pandemic, this slice of the pie was much bigger, but that was mainly due to the other elements being smaller. Sponsorship deals are a huge boon when they come in, but they aren't super consistent. Depending on the time of year or my health, it might not be viable for me to do sponsored segments in videos, which means that the money tends to come in big chunks, and then there's big periods of drought. As we're talking about how I make money today, it feels only right that for today's ad spot I tell you about my upcoming Kickstarter for the Year 3 SIDEQUEST Annual. SIDEQUEST is my monthly RPG magazine that is a love letter to the gaming zines of old, such as Dungeon, White Dwarf and Dragon Magazine, and every month SIDEQUEST brings new 5th edition compatible content to inspire players and game masters alike. On September 10th, we'll be returning to Kickstarter to fund the 3rd SIDEQUEST Annual, which bundles a year of issues together and makes them available in print for the first time in a hardback book. Within the 148-page tome, you're going to find more than 20 new monsters, 30 plus new magic items, multiple fantastic locations to place in your campaign world, new player options including ancestries and subclasses, new mechanics, new GM advice, world building articles, and just so much more. You'll be able to pick up both digital and physical copies of the book, as well as copies of our first 2 annuals over on the Kickstarter. And if we fund and meet our first stretch goal, you'll be able to get your hands on the Kickstarter exclusive special edition cover, which looks absolutely gorgeous. There's a link down in the description to follow along with the project and get notified when it goes live, but for now, let's head back to the video. When you're self-employed, this yo-yoing of money is one of the hardest things to get used to, so you have to be really disciplined to put money aside to give yourself some consistency, which is where this next segment really comes in handy. And that segment is Patreon. It's no exaggeration to say that I couldn't do this job without the support of my patrons. Over the last 5 years, they've provided me with a pretty consistent stream of income that makes up between 20 and 30% of my total revenue stream, and this year it was 23%. If you enjoy what I do here, Patreon is the best way to support me, as it provides a relatively stable income stream each month. It allows me to budget and get an idea how much money I have to spend on new projects, plus you get SIDEQUEST, the best-selling 5e magazine, as a reward every month. And then we come to the biggest chunk of the pie, Kickstarter. For this year, the Kickstarter numbers were all taken from the SideQuest Year 2 annual book launch, and they accounted for 52% of my income. This includes the initial Kickstarter funding, but also money raised through the pledge survey on BackerKit. Kickstarter is hugely valuable as it brings in a large cash injection, which I can then use to fund other projects, build up cash reserves, and buy big new equipment purchases. I've run Kickstarters for the last 3 years now, which have been between 40 and 50% of my income, and each one goes towards funding another project and buying new things like new camera gear, new PC parts, all of that kind of stuff. Kickstarter is also the biggest source of expenses too, which means that if I were to suddenly stop doing Kickstarters, it wouldn't hugely change how profitable the business was throughout the year, as it's way easier to kind of reel in expenses in other areas of the business compared to Kickstarters, which are usually dealing with making physical products, and physical products are expensive. Next up, we have product sales, which make up, again, around 9% of my income. This is things like the Icarus web store, where you can buy physical copies of my books, my drive-thru-RPG store, where you can get PDFs or print-on-demand copies, as well as some of my smaller marketplaces like itch.io and my mini factory. This is an area where I always want to increase the size of the pie, but I only have a limited amount of time to do marketing and stuff like that, and I almost always end up prioritizing Patreon for marketing because of that consistency in income that I was talking about. I'd much rather have that consistent income versus the one-off sales. And then other categories. Finally, we have this 1% slice, which is made up of freelancing gigs and affiliate marketing mostly. So sometimes when I'm talking about a product, I'll put an affiliate link down in the doobly-doo, and I make a tiny amount of money from that. And I'll occasionally be brought on by other companies to do writing or consulting for different projects as well. I tend to do a lot of early developmental consulting, so companies bring me in when they're super early in the stages of a product to get my thoughts and ideas on a game or a product long before it's ready to be seen by the public, almost like a professional vibe check. And then I might get to write out pitches, summaries, or frameworks and stuff for them to use going forward. It's the kind of stuff that's usually paid by the hour. It's a lot of conversations with other creatives, and it's honestly some of my favorite work to do. But this year was particularly lean for that freelancing work because I spent so much of the year ill, but some years that number has been as high as 30%. So there we have it. Those are my revenue streams for the 23-24 financial year. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it interesting. Were any of the percentages bigger than you expected? Were any of them smaller? Let me know down in the comments below. If you want to keep watching, check out this video where I talk about how I get paid to professionally world build. And until next time, happy gaming.